Hi, and welcome back to Behind the Scenes. I'm Debbie. Today we're going to talk about transformation and becoming a transformational leader. What does that mean? How do you do it? I'll share a little bit about how I've done it. If this is something you'd be interested in, then just keep watching. All right. So, transformation, it's a very natural part of a growing business. And it's so common that a business will have to go through various transformations that they say that it's roughly every 7 years that a business will need to change something major about their approach or what it is that they're doing. What I have seen in my career is usually a startup that has reached some level of success and now its systems are not mature enough to support the level of success and the speed at which the business needs to operate, for example. So that could be you're starting a very small business and everything's okay on paper, and then eventually you need an electronic system. So maybe you store documents in folders on Microsoft Explorer or something like this. And then before you know it, there's even more growth. And now that's clunky. You can't find the right information. You can't get people to shift their way of thinking and their way of doing business to match the way that the business needs to operate now. So every business then, it might not be that young, but businesses will go through a point in time where they need to go through transformation. And right now, many businesses out there are scrambling to go through an AI transformation, which is essentially figuring out how can they apply AI to different processes, become more efficient, or what have you. So you should be seeing roles that are associated with business transformation or people looking for transformational leaders. So how do you get there if you haven't done it before? Or if you're young in your career and you like to make big impacts and you're the type of person that really likes the idea of projects and finishing things or what have you, how do you become known or how do you become good at transformation, which will in turn make you an ideal candidate to be some type of transformational leader in the future? So that's what this is about. How do you do it? How do you transform an organization or a process within that organization from point A to B? In my experience, there are a few key steps that you have to follow. And if you do this, at least this is what I do, then you should be successful. Now, take it with a grain of salt, adapt it to what works for you. I'm just going to go over the key attributes or elements to look out for to become successful in transforming something. So, number one is you've got to define the problem. What is the problem here? What is it that needs to be fixed? Usually, if you are in job interviewing mode, the people are telling you what the problem is that you need to fix. But you need to go into that new job or new scenario or into that situation and figure it out for yourself. So you've heard one person's perspective, maybe three people's perspective on what the problem is, and you might start to notice that those opinions are aligning and maybe they're conflicting. Whatever the case is, you're starting to gather information. But what I do is I look at a few things. One, I look at data. Is there any data that I can look at that gives me a sense of history, historical performance, where a problem could be? And depending on the data and depending on your experience, the data will tell you different things. But if there is data, I go after data to give me some picture of what's going on. The other thing I do is I talk to my stakeholders. Now, who are the stakeholders? These are those people who are using your process. They're maybe making the most noise about whatever the problem is. They are people who maybe you've recognized have some kind of influence in the organization. Go have one-on-ones with these people. Don't meet with them as a group. Don't do that. But definitely go take the time to speak one-on-one with each one of those people to get their opinion. And you can just ask them, hey, you can tell them, this is what I'm working on. And I just want to know, what are your pain points? What's working and what's not? And if you ask those two questions, they will tell you what's working and what's not. So if you go around to all of your stakeholders, you'll see patterns emerge, or at least you should. You should start to hear themes of what the actual problem is, and even who might be causing a problem if that's relevant. They might describe experiences that they've heard their employees have had, or whatever the case is. Point is, you're going to get a lot of information on the problem, which will help you define what it actually is. Third thing is, you need to get into some of the detail. And you can do that several ways. If there's information to read so that you can read about whatever the issue is, do that. If you have an opportunity to actually use whatever process or experience it yourself, do that. You don't have to spend a lot of time here, but you have to get at least a working understanding of what the issue is. And then once you've done that, talk to the people who are doing the job, or the ones who are in the middle of whatever this problem is. You might find out that there are conflicting perspectives. So the stakeholders might have one view because they're not doing the job, and then the people who are doing the job might have a separate view as to what's happening. But many times those views actually do align. And so if you combine those four things, one, the data, any data that you have; two, your stakeholder feedback; third is your own experience with whatever process it is; and then fourth, the input from the people who are doing the work, then that should give you a good base to formulate the issue. Here's what the problem actually is. And once you've done that, then you can figure out, okay, this is specifically what's going wrong. And now for it to look good, this is what needs to happen. From that problem, you should be able to then define a working end state, or your goal. Basically, your goal at the end of this transformation is, I'm no longer going to have this roadblock. These two systems are going to connect. The performance is going to improve by X percent and whatever, right? So you'll have those two pieces of information. Once you have what you want the end state to look like, make sure you define it. Define what done actually means. My experience has had very specific done endpoints. It's something like, I have a good history of excellent output of work, and that excellent output meets this criteria. If there's a way for you to have that, you want to figure out how to measure and how to define what done looks like and what's good enough, basically. So that's step 2, define done. And then third, identify the steps that you need to take to get to that end state and break them down into manageable pieces. Some transformations, and if you're new to transformation, then this is probably not going to apply to you, but some transformations take multiple years and they span the world and thousands of people. And those types of transformations, they take time. They can take 2 to 3 years, depending on what it is that needs to be transformed. But if you're new at transformation, you're likely going to have a shorter time frame and fewer steps to get from point A to B. It could be different than that, but it's most likely not going to be different from that. Or if you are working for somebody who's really overseeing the transformation, then it could be a larger scale transformation. And what you want to do, though, is break down what are the steps, the logical steps that I need to do to get from point A to B. Now, whether or not you want to write that out in a project plan, that's up to you. I was a project manager for several years, and let me tell you, I could use Microsoft Project, but I did not like it at all. I felt like it was more work to maintain that thing than actually do the project itself. So I ended up defaulting to using Excel. It just, for me, it worked better. I was not getting any of the advantage, obviously, out of using Project, because if you use that, then it will tell you how long something's going to take. But basically, set up, unless you are trying to be a professional project manager, just do what works for you. Figure out how you're going to be able to track the activities that you need to do, figure out who it is you need help doing those activities, and then work on that alignment to make sure that you can get those activities done. One thing with large scale transformation is, in order to not burn out the organization, it's really important to take that long list of to do activities and break it down into 3 things, no more than 3. And then for those 3 things, you might have several things under those different 3 buckets, but framing it in 3 things that you're working on helps the organization absorb it a little bit easier. So just a little tip there. You don't want to overwhelm the organization with 20 things that you're working on. For now, those 3, of course, as one gets done, another would join that list. So you always have 3 until you get through your transformation. But nonetheless, just don't overwhelm the organization is the point. Okay, as you're working through this transformation, you need to measure your results. So you started out in the beginning with data to understand the performance of whatever process it is that you're looking at. You need to continue measuring and monitoring progress as you are executing on the transformation to make sure that you're achieving the results that you wanted to achieve. And if you don't, then you need to go back and figure out what was missing and correct that. Now, one of the most important things that I've learned is that you really have to have the people behind you. So that upfront stakeholder discussion series that you had, you will want to make sure that once you gather all of that feedback, that you then meet with that same group as a group and tell them, hey, I listened to you, and this is what I concluded, and this is what I believe we need to do to move forward. And you give those stakeholders the opportunity to listen. And then once they understand that their feedback was taken into consideration, they will usually move into a support mode for you. And you will need that in order to get the transformation done. If you don't have their support, then good luck. It's probably not going to work really well. I don't know what the correct saying is because I've heard it said a couple of different ways, but essentially, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if you cannot tap into the culture, the people, they will make sure that your initiative dies. It will become their mission if they were not made part of it or at least informed. It's just simply not their priority is really more what it boils down to, not like a specific grudge match, but it is really, really important that you are talking to people who are going to get impacted or who could have a say or who seem to care about what's going on in the organization, just to make sure that they are bought in to what it is that you're working on. And if you aren't sure how to solve things, because it can be tough to be the person who is responsible to transform something. And if you aren't sure what to do, ask someone, tell them, this is the problem I'm trying to solve. Do you have a suggestion as to how I'm supposed to do this? Also, that question works really well when you're receiving resistance. When you have figured out how to move forward and you're getting resistance, ask that person who's resisting, hey, I've been assigned this activity. I need to do this transformation. How do you suggest I do this then? And put it back on them. Oftentimes you'll find out that just moving the person into your shoes, it will help them understand that it's not you trying to do something to them. Instead, it's really that you're trying to do something and you're trying to get it right. And if you want to give positive input to me to help me do this right, I'm happy to hear it. So those are all tactics I've used over the years. And it's not to manipulate people. It's to truly connect with people. You do need to connect with people if you want to make a lasting change stick. Anyone can come in to an organization and they can hammer their way through forcing people to change. And that will last only as long as that person is there. Okay, so those are my basic tips on becoming a transformational leader. A lot of the success is underpinned with experience, to be honest. It's experience and it's people. Yes, you have to know your data. You have to know the problem. You have to accurately define it. But if you are going to be successful, it's the people that you have to bring along, and you have to deliver. That's the other thing. You definitely have to deliver. I'm assuming that you're going to deliver, but this is how you deliver, is that you bring the people along the way. Anyway, that was on my mind today. I hope this was a little helpful. And if you have questions on specific situations that you might be dealing with, I am happy to help. I have done many global, huge, large scale transformations in my life. And there's just a variety of little quirks that can crop up. And so if you have any questions like that for me, please put them in the comments down below or email me. I think there's a way to do that through YouTube. Anyways, reach out and I'm happy to help. All right, that's it for today. Thank you. Bye.